Welcome back to the Marathon Mortgage Happy Hour. I'm Mike Witzak,
I am Rory Farrell.
and we have a special guest today.
My name is Pierre Eade.
All right, Pierre, and you're a realtor
Welcome.
with what team? Who are you
I'm with Homestar Realty.
Okay.
And I'm licensed in both New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Awesome, killer.
Cool.
And actually, Pierre changed it up on us today. He brought it instead of a beer. We have a different type of drink that I'm very
Mike's
excited.
fired up about this.
I'm very-
He saw it popping out of his pocket and he was like, let's go.
Yes, I was very hype about it because I've asked Rory to try these a couple times, and Rory was like, no, and then I was like, this is the one way to get him to try
And
it.
then Pierre pigeonholed me
Yeah.
live on camera.
He got
He didn't tell me in advance, by the way. This is
No, I'm not against it. It's not something that I typically
would try.
would buy or try.
So we have a Celsius sparkling wild berry.
What is what is it?
It's you want to explain it or?
I don't know what's talking it, so maybe you ought to try first.
It's pretty much just an energy drink.
Oh, it's an energy drink.
Yeah,
I
zero
mean, I assumed
calories.
it was like some sort of seltzery water.
Yeah, kind of. Here,
yeah,
you'll
it tastes
you'll
pretty
see.
good too. I think you'll like it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll like it. Pouring
You
it
were
like
just
a
saying
beer.
you need some caffeine. Mike
Yeah.
is going to be wired
Oh, really?
over here.
I was gonna go to CVS.
I can smell it.
Pass
Here,
that down.
Yeah,
Yeah, perfect.
there we go.
Swap it with me.
We'll know it's kicking in when you start talking faster.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, exactly.
My little afternoon pick-me-up. Say about 3 days a week we'll go get coffee around now anyway.
Yeah.
So we didn't have it today.
Cheers.
Thank God it is.
Cheers,
Cheers.
man.
Thank you for
Cheers.
coming in.
Yeah,
Hey,
Thanks for BYOBing.
That's good.
That's
Ooh, that'll get you
Impressive.
zipping. That thing is sweet.
Yeah, yeah, dude. And they're 10 calories. They used to be 0 calories, but no sugar, gluten
There's
free.
no sugar in that?
No.
How is that possible?
Yeah, dude. Probably just some
Just
other
fake sugar.
chemicals. Yeah.
yeah. Which means
and-
you're only getting like 3 calories too.
Yeah.
Do the math. That's pretty
See?
cool.
Perfect. And it's kosher, in case you were wondering.
All right, great.
Perfect. There you go.
Good to know.
Nice.
Let me see this thing. I'll let you guys start chatting. I gotta see this thing.
Yeah, but anyway, so Pierre, let's jump into you. Let's get, Celsiuses are great, but they're only a drink. Let's talk about the real estate side of things. So we're in-house over at Homestar. We've had a couple Homestar real estate agents on from all different walks. Like, I'm sure you know Jake Toberman, and I don't know if you know John Petty or not, but he was on.
I don't think.
Yeah, there's so many. There's 400 agents over there now.
It's a growing team.
Yeah, big time. So it's always nice to have somebody from their team come over and be able to sit down and chat with us. So how did you get into real estate? I know we talked a little bit off camera, but
Sure.
I think it's a good thing to talk about on camera.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I fell into real estate. I wasn't really looking for it. It kind of found me.
Yeah.
And I bought my first home probably in my mid-20s. And I was working a corporate job, so got my first home. I think that's really how I started in real estate, by buying my first home. And I was just driving by that house and just happened to have an open house, walked in and ended up buying the house.
Wow.
So,
What
pretty
drew you
impressive.
to that house? Like, why that house?
I was staying with a buddy at the time. I was a young single guy staying with a friend in the local neighborhood. I think I had met who now is my wife, and it just seemed. I just drove by that day. I wasn't even house shopping.
We have
Just-
long time ago. You didn't need to be pre-approved or anything. You just walked in and you bought a house.
I just walked in. I met the guy there, and he seemed pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he was doing an open house, and so I bought that house. And my wife, we got married. My wife and I, and our now 3 kids, stayed there for about 12 years.
Wow.
And then we were really outgrowing the house, a small Levittown house and
Yeah.
little ranch house, and kind of bumping into each other. My kids were only getting bigger, and so we started to look for other houses and just kept falling like into just like offer not accepted, taken off the market. It was very discouraging.
Oh, geez.
And eventually found a house in Yardley, PA, where we live now, and it was a short sale. And we bid on the house, and the short sale was accepted. So I'm not sure who the audience is, but maybe you guys would probably be better at explaining a short sale than others. But the person was kind of trying to sell it with the bank's permission at a lower price. They accepted the price, but then the bank said no. So the house went back on the auction, and I was really disappointed when they said no, because they had, the owner had accepted the house. Went back on the auction. We ended up getting the house for like $34,000 less than that initial bid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
do
bank
it.
really, they missed out on that deal. And long story short, we got that house for about $100,000 less than what it was worth at the time.
Wow.
And that really opened my eyes, like, oh my gosh, like there's a lot of money to be made in real estate.
Yeah.
And that was really my entry into real estate, because then I started to invest from there. And it was a little bit further down the road that I became an agent.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And what year was that you were out house shopping and putting bids?
Gosh, so that's probably like I'm gonna say it's like 8 or 9 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. And you were going through that difficulty of like getting outbid back then. That's
Even back then.
I bought in Bucks County right around that same time, maybe a year or two after, and I just remember there was so many places on the market, and it was like we were under contract for 3 places. We ended up canceling 2 because of inspection. Like it was just a much different market than now, or what it sounds like you're describing.
It was bad luck for all the best reasons.
Oh yeah,
fair enough.
I mean, I always say, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just say, I always say like you land in the house that you're supposed to, like you get outbid or if something falls through in inspections. And just in my own personal experience, like, we had a couple of those. I'm like, man, thank God we didn't get that house. It sounds like that might have been similar to what you.
It's exactly what happened to me. You know, every time a house didn't go through, I was so disappointed. I think it was the end of the world. And I look back at every one of those houses, and I know for sure the house I have now is so much better than this.
Yeah.
This would be a great clip, Mike, for all of those buyers out there right now, frustrated. Clip it.
Yeah, especially, you know, I'm not your agent, at least not yet, but, you know, I like to tell my clients like, hey, listen, we got to trust the process and, you know, realize that we're going to do our best to get this house, but if it doesn't go through, there's something else out there for you. And that's easy for me to say, but it's not necessarily easy emotionally for someone to feel, especially if they have their heart set on the home. But I have found that to be really true in so many situations. And if I push something too hard, this is more of a general life principle than just a real estate principle. If I push something too hard, and that's nothing against, you know, working hard and striving and doing our best, but I find that if I'm pushing a little bit too hard, there's that, man, I think I'm trying to make something happen that maybe isn't supposed to happen here.
Yeah.
And I've got myself into some trouble that way, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think it goes to show how life works out in certain ways, and it's important to let that happen. There's so many buyers we run into nowadays that are like, oh, I got outbid on this house, I got outbid here, and then they end up finding a home and they get under contract and they're like, thank God I didn't get that other house.
Yeah.
So it's just important. But
I just closed with someone this last month, and we were looking at house after house, and it wasn't working out. And we found this great house. It was totally renovated, and there were no other offers on the house. And I was like, I don't know, you know, maybe there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
But we did the inspections, everything went through, and they really didn't want. They didn't really want to bid over asking price, which is very hard in this market.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm thinking, oh man, is this worth my time? Because we might be doing this for a long stretch.
Yeah.
It came out, you know, the right house came out for them, and it was better than any of the other houses. So I was just so impressed with that process. I learned something from that process. I learned to be patient in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, just, all right, I got to trust this process there too. And, you know, they had a standard, and they stuck to that standard, and it ended up working out for them.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this with other agents too. It's like you might be a pushier agent, but then you're going to attract the people who gravitate towards that type of energy, and then which is not a bad energy, it's just a different energy. And then, you know, it sounds like maybe I'm not as pushy. Maybe I kind of let things kind of happen, and you know, things happen for a reason. You're probably going to attract the clientele that like that type of sales tactic or that type of, you know, hand holding.
That's a great explanation of my process. And like, speaking of energy, how's that drink going for you, huh?
I'm drinking it.
I think we got a new one. I think we got him.
I could have about 1/3 of that can.
That'd be good for him for a while.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of background in coaching.
Okay.
I actually have, believe it or not, I have a doctorate degree.
There you go.
I have a doctorate degree in organizational leadership.
Very fancy and intelligent here.
Yeah, much smarter than us.
So my thesis was in coaching.
Okay.
And was actually in coaching and ministry. So I have another whole set of life that we haven't talked about yet. But in any case, I use coaching techniques in helping my clients. And one of the premises of coaching is that you ask open-ended questions to allow a person to freely answer, you know, where they want to be, you know. So by doing that, I give a person who's my client the autonomy to make their own decisions, right? And I'll, you know, often say, hey, here's my suggestion, here's what I think from my experience, but, you know, you have ownership here.
Yeah.
And so instead of driving it like, hey, this is what you got to do, it's like, hey, what are you looking for? You know, what would make you happy? How would you know that it's the right house? You know, ask them those open-ended questions, because at the end of the day, if they're not happy, like, what is that going to do for my business, right? My ultimate goal is like, they have to be happy. They have to be satisfied with the purchase.
Yeah.
And not to go too far, one more thing is that, you know, I really take the fiduciary responsibility as an agent very, very highly and important. And so I realize that client has to be my number one priority. like above everything else. And if I do that and take care of them and do the right thing by them, I just trust that everything will work out for me, and so far it has.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think asking those open-ended questions, and sometimes I'm sure that there's realtors that don't do that, but it just paints a picture of what these buyers are looking to do, and the best way to help them and put them above everything else is to paint that picture for them and figure out what, because everybody's different, right? I might want a farmhouse, he might want a condo in Philly, everybody's going to have a different picture of where they want their life to be, and you being a realtor and having this coaching experience and being able to help them paint their own picture of their future life and then provide it to them and go, hey, here's homes that I think match your picture. It's really, really important. I don't think enough people do. I've used one realtor my entire life to buy my investment properties, and that's my best friend since I was 6, so he has a pretty good idea of what I'm like. So it's like I've never had to do that, but I'm sure there's realtors there's plenty of realtors that don't do that. I think it's a really important step in the whole process. But did you? Yeah.
I just think, it goes beyond just real estate, just goes to relationships, right? And I think probably all of us can think about friends who are good listeners, and people who, when you're with them, they're with you and they're fully engaged. And so, especially when I meet someone, it's hard because a lot of calls that I get will be over the phone first.
Yeah.
And I get a call transfer, or I'm making a cold call, or I'm talking to somebody, and they don't know it. They don't know me from Adam, right? So, my tone makes a lot of difference then, and how I speak, the intonation of my voice. I'm very sensitive to those things because I realize this person is talking to a complete stranger.
Yeah.
And while I know I have good intentions in mind, they don't know me. But that first visit to a home, or first time to see somebody, that is really critical to me.
Yeah.
Because you really got to build that trust. And I really, believe that people, there's an expression, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the idea is I have a lot of knowledge about real estate, right? And I could share that with them. But they gotta know, does this guy care about my financial well-being, my needs, my wants, my desires, all that stuff? Or is he just out to be a money grabber? Which, if you think about it, realtors are probably some of the worst in terms of professions. We're right up there with lawyers.
Yeah.
Come on,
I'm glad he said it.
So, I'm trying to make that impression, that first impression, be really personable and caring and care about them, because I do.
Yeah.
Well, as you're saying that, this is something that me and Mike go through, and probably any loan officer in the industry is hey, that first in-person meeting is so critical. We don't get that until maybe the settlement table, and a lot of loan officers don't even show up. So it's just think about talking to a faceless person without being able to build that relationship in person, and then what's your social security number? How much money do you make? How many children do you have? What are your savings? All that. It's all these really critical, most personal, and we don't get to meet them oftentimes. Part of the reason why we started this podcast is people know what we look like, get to know us outside of being a loan officer, being a faceless person on the other side of that. But I always say that to realtors. I'm man, I would love to be able to meet someone in person, because I feel like we can be good at winning business and earning trust in person, but it's really hard over the phone or email or online applications. And
there's also a flip side to that though too. It's we don't have that connection with somebody like you do. So if somebody decides to stop working with us, it sucks and it's stressful and it's painful. But we're you have such more emotion in the game than we do. So if somebody was to stop working with you, you're hey, we've hung out. We've hung out on the weekends. We became friends almost. Yeah, I know your family. It becomes a much harder attachment to break, I'm sure.
Yeah. Sure. One of the things I do that has worked for me is I've created little mini videos, and so a mini introduction video. And so after I get off a call from someone, the first thing I do, and I have a program in my phone where it's a text replacement if you're an iPhone user, where you just have to punch in a few words and it pops up, right?
Okay.
And it's got the text, got the link, everything. And it's an introductory video. So that video is my face then saying, hey, my name's Pierre. I'm looking forward to helping you with all your real estate needs. I'm here at any time. You can call or text me, right? Something like that. Real friendly, very casual. And they're going to get it instantly, no matter who I talk to. They're going to get it once I'm done off the call.
Yeah.
And so now they have at least a video and a visual of who I am.
Yeah.
That makes it a little bit more personable than just if some random dude.
Yeah.
And then the other cool thing about that is, then when I meet him in person, they're like, oh, that's the guy. You know, that's the guy that, right? So that's worked well for me, and just to try to give them, some type of visual of who I am.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Well, especially if you're like meeting them at a property or something, like you want to make sure you're meeting the right person.
Yeah, right. It's
Some random,
guy, right?
Some random neighborhood that I've never been to, and this guy is showing up in his car. So
yeah. I don't know if you wanted to touch on anything else, but I did want to touch on the whole coaching piece and how you. So, is that what you did prior to real estate? Was life coaching or?
No, I've never done that as a full-time profession. So before real estate, I was actually a pastor.
Okay.
And I am a pastor now too. So I was a full-time pastor. My career journey, I'll be very quick. I worked for corporate America for 12 years. I worked for a pharmaceutical company, Bristol Myers Squibb. Had a radical encounter at a young age with God, and didn't go into ministry or anything like that, but just felt like got more and more involved in helping people and serving people through my church. And then as time went on, I felt like, man, I want to do this full time. And it's kind of interesting because there was a young guy who I talked to once who described it really well. I grew up in a business family. Everything was business. My dad owned his own business. I went to school for business initially. And so when I came out, all I wanted to do was business, right? And so it was all about business. And then slowly over time it swung, and I was like all about ministry. I just wanted to help and serve people. Forget about money. Forget about any of this stuff. Which for a young guy is kind of odd, right? But I had a total flip of heart. And so then I went into ministry and served as an associate pastor for 12 years. And then over the last 3 or so years, left that church full-time as a real estate agent and an investor, and I started my own church.
Wow.
So I'm a pretty busy dude.
Yeah.
So I'm a pretty busy dude. But what I present to that, every time I come to a meeting with a first-time buyer, I have all of the standard documents that you need to have as a realtor. But I also have a fact sheet on who I am on the left-hand side, and it just tells my story, tells my journey. And I don't leverage this in the wrong way, but I tell people up front that I have a past and history with ministry and a past and history of business. And I believe that those two worlds collide together really well for me, because on one side, I'm business savvy enough, I understand the market, I understand money, I understand all that. On the other side, I know how to care for people.
Yeah.
I know how to listen to people. And so that's kind of my background. The coaching stuff is really something first I just, I'll go about that later, but I benefited from coaching, personal life coaching, and then I started taking coaching training and started being equipped as a coach, and I've done some of that stuff as well, and I think that'll be kind of a future role, but right now I'm more focused on the real estate business.
Yeah, I mean, regardless though, as being a pastor, as being a realtor, I think having a coaching background or experience in coaching is very important, because I haven't been really involved with the church as of recent in my life, but I was for a very long time, and I think a lot of those guys are coaches in a way,
Sure.
So you go to them to talk to them about things or advice in life, so I think it's important to have that background in doing what you do.
Yeah, it comes in handy just to, I guess, better understand people.
Yeah.
The more you understand people and how people work and different personality types, and I just get a sense sometimes where a person's at. I can sense sometimes when they're afraid, first-time home buyers, they're asking a ton of questions, and oftentimes my role is just to really calm them down.
Sometimes they just need that reassuring, like, no, this is normal.
Right. That's a good way to put it, and so just in a reassuring voice, hey, this has happened before, been there, I understand, or I'll say things like, hey, I'm going to walk you through this whole process. You're not going to be alone.
Yeah.
I'm going to be right by your side, Many times I'm using things that are actually scriptural. They don't even know I'm saying it. I'm going to slide it in there, I'm going to be right by your side. I'm going to help you along this path, Put my late night evangelist voice on, I'm going to help you. But
why was there only one set of footprints?
that is classic.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to get that frame to give it away to new home buyers. That's awesome. That's great.
I didn't know you knew that.
Man, boom.
Catholic school, CYO, all that growing up.
Crushing it, man.
Yeah, man.
That Celsius is bringing out the best in you.
Firing on all cylinders.
By the way, it's going. So
yeah, look at that. Look who finished first, man.
Yeah,
We'll get you some bread.
No, one of the things that I think that our team's very good at, and it sounds like you focus on, is the education part of it too. It's like, I feel like, especially in our industry, like, you can go to Quicken, you can go to Rocket, you can go to some of these big banks and get, maybe an eighth of a better rate or whatever the case is. But it's feel like we win a lot of deals that way because we take the time to walk through step by step what's going to happen. What happens if this happens? You know, worst case scenario, how do we deal with it?
I mean, we're just so focused on, hey, I think Tom does a great job at teaching everybody that comes to the company this, and then we do a great job of carrying it out, but putting ourselves in their shoes. Like, as a first time buyer, they've never met us, like we said before, we're over the phone, and we're the financing part of the whole process. So if they're in the dark about something, they're freaking out, they're nervous, they want to know what's going on. So that's
they're getting advantage.
Exactly. So the first thing we do, if anybody ever has any questions on something or it's confusing, like, hey, let's jump on a phone call, let's talk through everything, we'll tell you what's going on, how it's happening, how it works. We'll give you as in-depth of an explanation as you want, you know? And I think that just goes a long way to help people understand everything and feel comfortable and just not panic, you know, while they're going through it.
So I'm helping this lady right now, and she's selling her home, and she's buying another home. Her home, she's a little bit older. Hope she doesn't listen to this again. But yeah, no, she's well, you know, in retirement age. So her house is paid off, and she wanted to buy a new home and kind of downsize, but she didn't want to do 2 moves, right? She didn't want to sell her house, move temporarily somewhere, and move somewhere else. So I strategized with her. I said, one of the greatest ways to do this is you get a HELOC on your house. We'll get you that HELOC. Then we're going to purchase that other house, right? And then you're going to buy that house, and then you're going to sell your house, and you know, I can explain all that through. And so her closing's coming up in a couple of weeks, and I realized she hadn't taken any of the money out of the HELOC yet. And I don't know, is this too deep of a dive?
No, this is how this goes.
So,
wherever it goes.
Okay, so, you know, as I was realizing, I was like, man, title's going to pull title, and they're not going to see that she hasn't even any money out on this house. What's going to happen then, right? So I'm thinking ahead, like, thinking several steps ahead about, like, what's going to happen if we get to closing and title pulls out the fact that she doesn't owe any money in this house, but in fact, she's going to pull out some money in the HELOC. So I called the title company, what do we need to do? So thankfully I did that because they said, all right, well, you need to pull the money out, and then you need to freeze that HELOC. You need to, you know, show that you're not taking any more money out of it, and also have a payoff for that, right? And then we can proceed forward because we'll know how much is owed, right? So here I am explaining to this lady all of that process, buying the other house, you know, all the various steps. So I said, I was on the phone with her literally today before this, and I was describing it all to her. I said, listen, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a video for you. I'm going to explain it all. I set my iPhone stand up, had a piece of paper, had a little light there. I drew a house that she owns, the house that she's buying, a picture of the bank, a picture of the HELOC. I'm moving the money around. I'm doing all the steps. In 2 minutes, I covered everything, and I shot her the video, right? And, you know, to me, like, she can watch that video 100 times. Right? And that's going to give her the reach. And she went to the bank today and still had questions.
She's like, check out this video.
That's what I need to do. Can you figure this out for me, please?
Can you listen to this guy? What is he talking
Put
about?
your headphones
It goes back to the point of, you know, one of our roles as lenders and as realtors is education.
Absolutely.
Maybe even not only the education part, but how do we figure out how they're going to receive that education the best? And in this situation, maybe a video worked better than a 10-minute phone call.
I said, like, I'm happy to come over your house, but I said I could also just do a video here and you'll have it on your phone. Done. You know? And she could share that with her daughter who's helping her through the transaction. So there's a lot of hand holding, there's a lot of, I'm sure you guys know this too, there's just a lot of just attention to detail and care as you take people through a process, especially if they haven't been through that process before.
Absolutely, Well, no, you were just saying that, you know, well, first of all, we were saying about the early morning calls. But I mean, what I find a lot of times is that clients, you know, they have their 9-to-5s, quote unquote, so they can't talk, or they don't feel like talking during the work, you know, during the normal work day that we work, you know. But that's not how our industry goes, just like, you know, nights and weekends and stuff like that. So what I try to do is, like, I look at my week, what's my week gonna look like, and my wife's schedule dictates a lot of our kids' responsibilities as well too, and how I can kind of manage that. But I mean, I was looking back on old text messages today on a client. I was like, I'm available 6:30 to 7 a.m. if you're available. He's like, great. And I don't necessarily love that, but like, you gotta be available.
We gotta do
sometimes.
You gotta do what you gotta do. I love, I tend to get a lot of phone calls late. A lot of texts late. Like, that's I don't know why my clients like to do that, but they do. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I've been on I remember one time I got a phone call. Now this this wasn't late here, but it was 2 in the morning where I was, and somebody called me at 6:30 here, and I picked the phone up and I'm like, hello? And they're like, hey Mike, what's going on?
It's your
I'm like,
fault.
"Oh, no." Yeah, I saw who it was and I was like, it's a client, I gotta pick it up. So it's just, I think we really accommodate for all sorts of needs, but again, it doesn't make it any less annoying.
No, and that's just how we operate, and that's not a right or wrong way to do it. Like the structure of yours, like you can't have too much structure in our industries as well, because like you got to pivot, you got to be able to like be a little looser. So having like kind of a loose structure of like, hey, the important thing, we got to get those done now is important, and then like kind of work your way around the rest of it.
Yeah.
I got a lead today while I was sitting over there for $2 million. Now, whether or not they have the $2 million or not, they won't be qualified, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, if it's a verified, qualified lead and they said, hey, you know, I want to see that house today, I'm busting out.
Yeah.
I'm finding the time that, you know, I can make it to be there. So, you know, I am flexible that way and try to, you know, move my schedule around to accommodate for whatever's needed.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just very important and pivotal to do that, especially in this.
Especially
you have shifty here.
But it's so scarce, the business, you know.
Oh yeah,
like,
market.
we can only offer so much in the way of tangible things like rates and fees, like we were talking about. It's like
Sure.
part of what makes us good or why we win business sometimes is the intangible stuff. It's like, are you willing to take a phone call at 6:30 in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, or are you available on nights and weekends when offers are going in, or you know,
It's our service, yeah. Our service,
are you
sure.
willing to take the time to educate someone who needs the education? It's like that's a huge part of this, you know, being a good loan officer and a good realtor, and trying to convince people that is a huge part of it, not just the rate and the fees and all that stuff. You know, it's part of the problem sometimes, but it is something that we strive to do. Is like almost focus more on that sometimes.
Yes.
That's so important. Yeah, because of my previous work as a pastor, like that was a lot of weekend work, you know, especially Sundays. So I just became of a mindset like it's not that I don't have time off, but I don't have a weekend. Like people say, how's your weekend gonna be? It's like it's gonna be like any other day. You know? It's like and I'm happy with that, right? Because I could have a Wednesday where I'm really free and have more time, and I've had to learn that I got to take that when I can. And I prioritize my kids and my family, you know, like if my kids and family want to do something, like I have the flexibility, fortunately, the means to do that. And my wife homeschooled our kids for a good portion of the year, so I was home a lot, you know, or they were home a lot, and we have a really tight family. We just try to keep things close. I don't have any regrets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've been blessed financially, and you know, God's taking care of me, but I like having that flexibility, to be honest with you. And I'm very responsive too. Text comes in, I mean, it's rare that I'm not responding immediately. If not, my phone's always on me, except for like right now.
Yeah.
Like, maybe even too much, right? You know, maybe an over responsive that they think that they can have it any time, but most people don't abuse it. I think people want that responsiveness. They want to know that, you know, you're watching out for them. And yeah, I think it's a joy. I really enjoy real estate. I hear realtors, and especially on like some online chats and stuff, complaining about their job and all that. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know what you're complaining about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a job. Every job's gonna have some complaints, you know.
Yeah, and what I enjoy personally, this is my bet on it. Like, I like that. I get up, I get out, I go, and there's some mobility to it, you know, because I worked a lot of years, probably about 12 years for corporate America, where I was like inside a cubicle, and it just wasn't my job, man. It wasn't personally for me. It wasn't my style. I had too much get up and go in me. So I love going out and meeting people and connecting with people.
I agree. Yeah, totally. And that's speaking of connecting with people. That's why I wanted to ask one more thing that we can touch on is the fact that you have a couple people you're working. Well, you're not working with them. They're almost working for you as like a small team or help. Or so how's that going for you?
Yeah, it's just on the preliminary side.
Yeah.
And I'm just starting to build a team, and I realized from my investment side, well, let me take it a little back further. There's a lot of books that I've read over the years, but some that were game changers for me. And Rich Dad Poor Dad was a game changer for me. I'll have to say that, like, I got depressed when I first read it because I was doing all the opposite of what he was advising. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna work the rest of my life. You know, there's no way out of this rat race. And but then I was determined, like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know? And then I started listening to Bigger Pockets and, you know, all the things that I told you before about what happened and how that unfolded. So I realized, like, and then there's a second book that has I'll get back to the question, didn't forget it.
No.
The second book of his that really was life transforming, and I would recommend it highly, is Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yeah, cash flow quadrant.
If I had a piece of paper, I'd draw that one out for you here too.
Yeah.
You know, I love showing that to people. But the idea of the cash flow quadrant is, you know, you're either an employee, self-employed, you're a business owner, or you're an investor. And those ones on the right-hand side, business owner, investor, where you want to be, where a business owner is using people to make money, not using, but employing people to make money, and an investor is using money to make money. So I realized from that model that being a realtor, I'm in that S quadrant, right? I'm self-employed, and you can only I only have 24 hours in a day, right? If I sleep 7 of them, maybe 8, right? I'm down to 16, right? How many hours of that do I want to work? How many do I want to be with my family, right? It definitely doesn't want to be 16, right? But if I can bring one other person on, and bring another person on, and bring another person on. So I started to connect with people within my company, and fortunately I have a great broker, Jerry Hill, who just kind of put some people my way to say, hey, you know, talk to these people, they might be good for you. And so I've slowly started to build that team. And yeah, it's been good. It's been good to kind of be on the mentoring side, helping people learn the business, giving people business. You know, this week, today, you know, I have someone going to show my house for me. Tomorrow as well. Yesterday I did as well. So like, I'm in 3 places at once. Like, isn't that awesome? You know? And, you know, I'm not afraid to share the profit, because at the end of the day, they're serving, they're using their time, they're using their gifts. They spent the time to get their license. And I've also just encouraged a couple of young people to take their license. They passed, and so now they're joining the team too.
That's awesome.
So trying to slowly build that team, build it with younger people. And so I'm on the front end of that.
Yeah.
But it's going really well, and I think it fits who I am as a leader, you know, as a team builder, because it's, you know, it's kind of just my DNA, who I am, and what I want to be about.
That's killer. Yeah, and I know we had one of them on the podcast. We had Joe on.
Yeah, Joe, he's a great young man, and he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, for sure. I see the emails popping up on my thing all the time for list reports. He's always printing out new, like, I guess, open house sheets or marketing sheets for homes, so that's great. And, so excited. Maybe we'll have you on here, and you'll be like, yeah, I got 20 agents now. We're doing X, Y, and Z.
Do a collab one, you and Joe come on together.
Well, I was impressed when I met with Tom, right, and his philosophy. You know, I don't know if he said these words, but I've heard it before. You know, you hire slow and you fire fast. I'm not sure if he said that, but the philosophy that he was saying, you really want to make sure you're working with good people.
Yeah.
You know, working with people that you want to be around and hang around and be with. And so, you know, that's critical to me too, because work is such an important part of your life. It takes out so many hours of your day, right? And if you get the choice, right? If you're an employee and you're working for, you know, you're going to work wherever, even though you have a choice, all right? But if you have the choice in terms of who you bring on, why not bring on the best people?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I've said this a million times before, and I'll say it a million times again, but I would never be doing this if it wasn't for Tom and Rory and the people I'm surrounded with, because, I mean, these past 3 years have been brutal as a loan officer. And I mean, my business is still consistently growing every year over and over. I think that's because I'm so new and I'm just constantly building my business, whereas for some loan officers, like, you know, 60% of loan officers have hung the license up and gotten out of the business. So,
wow, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I would never, I'd always said to Tom, like, if I'm to leave Marathon and Ridge, I'm not going to go somewhere else and do loans, dude. Like, I'm going to find a totally different career path. So this is where I plan on being for a long time, if not forever. So,
awesome. You found your home.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the most important thing is who I work with. You know,
yeah, for
if it
sure.
wasn't for them, I would never be doing this. So.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's so important.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to say anything to that, Rory.
No, I mean, I've said it.
Thank you so much
you,
for saying that. That was awesome. So sweet of you.
I know you tell me all the time in private, so.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I said the same thing. I mean, my father worked here under Tom, and then he brought, you know, he was like, why don't you come on when I moved back to the area, and then you've known Tom for years. You met Tom's mom,
right
down there, the first girl, when you first walked down the steps, she's my sister-in-law. It's like,
oh, no kidding.
Tom's built this
Tom's best
environment.
That office you walk past to go to the water fountain,
right.
That's Mike Lipinski, that's Tom's friend from high school.
Wow.
Yeah, we're all kind of family.
We
really kind of are family.
Yeah.
Kathy's been here for 20 plus years, yeah.
And it's funny, we're all different, you know, for all the way from your age all the way up to, you know, Tom's mom. And we all get along, we go to happy hours together, we like hang out together, we you know, have stuff to talk about every day, we look forward to seeing each other. It's a fun environment.
It is.
And that's why we're in the office. Like, there's not a lot of loan officers that are working in an office. Like, a lot of them are working from home. And I love going to the office.
Yeah.
No, that's fun. You know, it just goes to the point of culture, especially
So
leadership, how important culture is.
Yeah.
And so just a little bit about, because I am in ministry and I'm a pastor, I have a bit of a different church. So we're what we would call a dinner church. So when we meet together, we always have dinner.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
And we meet on Monday nights. We met last night. So we have dinner together. So there's multiple tables in the room. Everyone's having dinner together. First half an hour, we're just eating and hanging out. And then there's, worship, contemporary worship, then I give a message. And then we have conversation around tables where no question's a bad question. And we have table facilitators, and we say, hey, listen, we just want you to be yourself. There's no shame here. This is a safe place. You can say whatever you want. Whether you agree or disagree doesn't matter. Just be yourself. We've said that now. We're 2.5 years old. Every week for 2.5 years. Do you know what we've done? We've created that culture.
Yeah.
And people treat each other with that type of respect, which I don't know about you, but it's hard to find in America these days. You're not going to find it on social media, right? I mean, we're in one of the most divisive, intense times. But it goes back to the point of culture and how important culture is. And that culture isn't just a work thing or a church thing, it's a family thing, right? It's a relationship thing. And it's a leadership thing, how are you intentionally building the characteristics, the values, and the culture that you want in your organization? Because ultimately you're going to live with that, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is very important to me because I don't want to live in an environment that's toxic.
Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting too. I've never heard of that before. That sounds cool.
I mean, it's similar to what we're doing, not to bite off you, but like trying to make it casual, trying to make it community. Like, hey, let's. This isn't like hey, this is the interview, blah 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 blah. Like open conversation. Let's make it easy. Let's make it low key.
Sure.
Like that's it. You get the most out of people when they feel comfortable, right?
100%. And I learn from other people's perspectives, even if they're not.
Sure.
If they're not my own, right? How am I going to learn? If it's very easy to just be associated with people who are all like you, and then there's this confirmation bias that takes place, and you just think I must be right because everyone else who's around me thinks the same way.
Yeah.
Well, they're all listening to the same news station that you are. They're all going to the same places that you are. They're all in line. That's why they're all saying the same thing, right?
The algorithm spits in the same information that they spit you.
Telling you what, right? It's so instead, break out of that comfort zone, be vulnerable. Be willing, be humble enough to listen to another person's opinion that's not your own, especially if it's different from you. See what you can learn, And I've grown a lot through that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I've grown a lot through that, and I just find people interesting. I just find people interesting in how they come to perspectives. And a lot of what I find is like a person's background and upbringing often shapes so much of who they become and what they believe. You think about that in finances too. If a person was brought up with hardly any money in a poor environment, it's going to shape their initial belief set. Now, their money mindset could change over time by choices they make, what they read, and what they intake. But that initial pattern that's in their mind it's there.
Yeah, for sure. But did you want to touch on anything else? You good?
The only thing that I was going to touch on it was the last question you brought up about building a team and using your coaching background, and that's I'm glad that you asked that because that was my only other thing that I want to touch on. So
cool.
Some time to go.
There you go.
Bam.
Been doing it for long enough. So. But is there anything else you wanted to speak about, or?
I'm good. It's been a privilege to be here. Thanks for
inviting me on.
Thanks for how busy you are. We appreciate you taking some time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I look forward to doing business with you guys. And, and look forward to the future ahead. Thanks so much for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Pierre. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Cheers.